Volume, volume.
Good morning to all of you. I am going to lead the first session. Myself, Dr. Mohan Raj. I teach Environmental Science and Management at Aspen University. So today we are going to focus on the negative and positive effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on the environment. As on date, there are more than 45 lakh cases of COVID-19 across the world. And there are also more than 3 lakh mortality across the world. In India, the mortality is close to 3,000. So as of now, we all know that there are no specific vaccine or treatment available. And therefore, the government of India and all the governments across the world resorted to the lockdown, which we could see here. So, as of now, there is no treatment available and no vaccine available, and that is the reason why all the government have resorted to a kind of lockdown, either partial lockdown or complete lockdown. And in many countries, there are partial lockdown, whereas in India, we were in complete lockdown for 41 days, and now we are in the partial lockdown. In many states, there are full lockdown as well. So here in this particular talk, I would like to focus on the positive effects on the environment during this lockdown phase, and also little bit brief about the negative effects on the environment. So in this lockdown, we started staying at home, and there are, an estimate says that since majority of the industries and transportation have shut down or come to the grounding halt, there are reductions in the emissions levels like PM2.5, that is the particulate matter, and nitrogen dioxide, and even noise too. So all these parameters have drastically come down due to the lockdown. A recent estimate, which you can see down, says that coronavirus lockdown would have saved 77,000 lives by curbing emissions from factories and vehicles, nearly 10 times the number of deaths worldwide from the virus so far. This may be the little older data, but the fact is more than 7,000 lives have been saved in terms of the cleaner air. That's what, you can see another picture there. The coronavirus, the carbon dioxide emissions and before and after coronavirus. So here in the Europe alone, there was a recent report which says that 11,000 deaths around added during, avoided, 11,000 deaths avoided during COVID-19 lockdown in Europe, and thanks to the cleaner air. Many of us do know that air pollution is one of the largest health problem in not only in Europe but across the world. Now, approximately there are about 4 lakh deaths in European regions, mainly due to the air pollution. So, what happened during this lockdown period? Because of the better air or cleaner air, people tend to breathe healthy air, and that has considerably reduced the morbidity rate of the citizens. In the sense, lockdown has another way contributed to the better human health, and also it has also developed a natural defense system which could fight against the COVID-19. So here in the lockdowns, in fact the nitrogen levels, nitrogen dioxide, which is one of the toxic pollutants, have been reduced 40% during this lockdown phase. And researchers say 11,000 people have died. This is, as I told you, 11,000 deaths have been avoided due to the COVID-19. And here you can see the country-wide impact on air pollution levels. The lockdown, as a result of lockdown, countries like UK had reduced, had recorded 36% reduced levels of nitrogen dioxide, and this on the left side you can see the nitrogen dioxide, on the right side you can see the particulate matter less than 10 microns. And countries like Portugal has been able to reduce more than 60% of the pollution. So this is how the lockdown has good effect, or in fact a good impact or a positive impact on the air quality. So here you can see the concentrations of nitrogen dioxide across Europe. The three countries have been, you can see the three countries in this picture. The left side is the one which is the satellite imagery that was taken during March 2019, and this one on the right side you can see the satellite imagery during the lockdown. So it's clearly visible that nitrogen dioxide have reduced considerably, and you can see that cleaner air across the European, these four countries, which is evident that due to the lockdown effects. And also, the China reported, in fact, the first emission reduction data. You know, in China, there was about 25% decrease in the carbon dioxide emissions during the lockdown phase. Basically, due to the lockdown of factories, and coal usage has come down by 40%, and all these things have contributed to the lesser emissions, and this lesser emissions in turn has contributed in a better manner towards climate change mitigation. You know, the carbon dioxide is one of the major greenhouse gas, and since many countries had entered lockdown, the carbon dioxide emissions have come down drastically, and this in fact in turn has benefited climate change, which would otherwise would have been less impossible or completely impossible. So at this stage, there are some unexpected or unintended gains due to the lockdown. One is the reduction of particulate matter, which will improve the health, and the reduction of carbon dioxide, which can contribute to the climate change, or which can mitigate the climate change. And also, not only in Europe, there are even in countries like Brazil, there has been considerable decrease in nitrogen oxide emissions and nitrogen dioxide and nitric oxide emissions. You can see the satellite imagery, which was in 2000 comparative account of 2019 and 2020, where you can see there is a considerable reduction in the emission. And these are the pictures, recent pictures which I got from the Guardian newspaper, and you can see the lockdown effects, visualize the lockdown effects on the atmosphere quality or the air quality. Everything is very clear. The atmosphere is very clear, free from pollutants. You can see even in Delhi, the capital city of India, it's one of the highly polluted cities in the world, which saw a reduction of 60% in particulate matter levels. That is particulate matter 2.5, which is the particulate matter less than 2.5 micron, which is one of the serious pollutant in terms of health effects, respiratory health effects. This has constantly come down. Even sometimes more than 60% reduction has been observed during the lockdown case. So you can see the initial 3-week lockdown period, number of hours rated as unhealthy in New Delhi has dropped 60%. That means New Delhi has been experiencing the very healthy air during the lockdown period. And this is some more data for you. You can see the percentage reduction. Maybe you can see the left one indicates the non-lockdown period, and right side and the right one the column there. Column which indicates the lockdown days. So you can see in a place like Manesar, Mandi, Gobindbagh, these are the places where you can see more than 60% reduction in the air, in the emissions, and therefore there is an increase in the air quality index. It is like good. Most of the places have been recorded as green. So this shows that very good impact on the air quality during the lockdown period. And these are some more cities for you to see. And everywhere you can see the green shade, which means that the air quality is very good during the lockdown days. And even this is another study by UNS et al., which I found in the Science of Total Environment. And in this you can see the air quality that was recorded in a state, Vichila Junction in Ernakulam. Here you can see the reduction during the lockdown days. And now I will come to the issues related to the air pollution. Actually, this picture shows that number of deaths attributed to particle matter 2.5, that is less than 2.5 in 2016. In this picture, it's very clear that the two countries, China and India, is the most hit country due to the air pollution. You can see the more than 1,30,000 people have died or died prematurely due to the air pollution. And this is the data, WHO data, which was released in 2016. So now it's very clear that not only the COVID, there are factors such as air pollution which could cause more than 1 lakh deaths in a country like India. So, coming to the point that during the lockdown effects have been a booster or have been considered as a positive effect towards these air pollution and health disorders. You can see this, the projected avoided health impacts will be air pollution during the lockdown period. These are the benefits we have got out of the lockdown. Here you can, there has been as much as 5,000 deaths have been avoided due to the air pollution, particularly in the point 2, point 1. There are more than 16,300 deaths have been avoided due to nitrogen dioxide. So together we see a very good positive effect on the health or on the human health due to the lockdown. And there is also another question whether the air pollution may worsen the COVID pandemic. Although there is no data, but then there are incidences such as high air pollution reduces the normal defense mechanism, and air pollution is also strongly linked to the COPD, that is chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, asthma, heart disease, and diabetes. So all these things, during the COVID outbreak, if there are high levels of air pollution, there are high chances that people are more vulnerable to get infected due to COVID, and then all these things will certainly aggravate the COVID infection and also the mortality rate. So this is so the air pollution, if we get control in air pollution, will definitely is going to benefit the society in general. So it's not only the air pollution. During the lockdown period, even the water quality in India improved in the rivers and lakes. This is one such data which has been collected from 27 points in the real-time monitoring data of CBCD. You can see the dissolved oxygen has improved on all the so-called pollution parameters are the safer level, which means that water quality also has considerably improved during the lockdown period. And this is another data to show you from another study which says that there is a 15% decrease in the turbidity, which is an indicator of the water quality, another indicator of water quality. This place is the Vembanad Lake in Kerala, where the study says that there is a substantial reduction in the turbidity levels, which means that the pollution levels have come down in the water bodies too. And there are also again some more benefits for the wildlife here, which we would have seen during the lockdown period in WhatsApp messages and so many newspapers. That the wildlife coming to the road and they're taking a break and they feel safe during the lockdown period, and the wild animals coming to the human habitation during the lockdown, which means that they have taken a slight edge over the human habitation, or maintained their positions in their habitat because of the lockdown. So, coming to the negative effects of this COVID, there are some negative effects too on the environment. For example, medical waste is on the rise. Normally, this is the data from the Wuhan, where the COVID-19 origin cases were first reported. In a normal day, the medical waste used to be 50 metric tons, whereas during the during this COVID or during the pandemic, after the breakdown of this epidemic, Wuhan recorded 240 metric tons of medical waste per day compared to the previous period. So in many places, due to the quarantine or the lockdown phase, the people tend to buy from the online mode, or people tend to buy from the app-based online stores, which deliver the products with lot of organic waste-based wrappings and the cases. So Europe recorded a substantial increase in the solid waste, mainly organic waste generated by the house. So, and also there is another issue which normally people ask: the excess use of disinfectants like chlorine and alcohol-based sanitizers, sodium hypochlorite, all these disinfectants can harm the wildlife and human. In the long term, it can they tend to remain in the environment, and they may create problems to the wildlife. For example, you can see the sanitizers and the masks and all these the medical instruments which are being discarded would finally reach the waters and the land. So this may in the long term affect the wildlife as well as the human health. So now we have seen both the positive and also the negative, a little bit of negative effects due to the lockdown and COVID pandemic, triggered by the COVID pandemic. And here, what next, or what should be the course of action after the COVID settles down, or the post-COVID scenario? Here, I have been reading a lot of articles, and this is something related to the announcement which came today. The government has declared or announced 20 lakh crore economic stimulus to the to the various sectors. And here we would like to emphasize one particular point at this time, including a green component in this economic stimulus package will certainly help to achieve the sustainable development goal target, as well as the economic growth. So this, this we call it as co-benefits. When the economy rebounds, or when the stimulus pack, economic stimulus tries to restart the growth in industrial sector, one thing which they can concentrate is on the green strategies or the green technologies. Rather than bouncing back to the normal technologies, they can go for the greener technologies, which would have more benefits of the economic growth as well as the sustainable development goal achievement, which would keep our benefits which we obtained during the lockdown period, the cleaner air, the cleaner water, all these things can continue if the new economic stimulus package incorporates a green component in it, that is the green technologies, cleaner technologies, which can reduce the carbon emissions, and the new policies which can improve the green rating. So this picture shows that if we adopt the green stimulus package by 2030, it's easier for the states to achieve the Paris targets or the sustainable development goals. So what are the do's and don'ts? It's very clear that these are the sectors which needs innovation, in the sense innovation in technology, innovation in green components, in green solutions. So you can see here, fiscal reform on fossil fuel subsidies should not be there, and the land-based transportation system, financial incentives for zero-emission vehicle, direct investment in low-carbon public transport. The government can push all these kind of development, which will lead to the better air quality and sustainability of the environment. So in the aviation sector, the conditions, the conditional sector support for aviation, instance, bailout and accident R&D efforts, which to roll out better technologies which can reduce the emissions. And industry, the low carbon technology, as I said earlier, and pilot and R&D projects, steel and cement in particular, and efficient appliances like lighting and digital devices, which can all go for innovations which will reduce the carbon emissions, or which will low carbon technologies. And in the building sector, they can go for energy efficient retrofits in the existing building, and the new buildings can come up with low or zero energy buildings, which does not consume any power, which can self-support itself through solar energy or wind systems. All these things, and also there should be a large-scale restoration of landscape restoration and reforestation. And finally, these are some of the examples which you can find in the picture. The fleet of electric buses, which some countries have introduced, and India can think in the new economic stimulus to introduce the fleet of electric buses, the fleet of electric trains, and they can also encourage the projects which will support the walk and bike projects. There can be separate lane in the new infrastructure which can support the walk and bike projects, and also the technologies such as solar, wind can be encouraged. And this is again another picture. You can see the town which I found in the Guardian newspaper. A company in India which has come up with a new technology which is called as Wi-Fi booster. Just installing a Wi-Fi booster can increase your coverage. These are some of the examples of innovation which the students, the upcoming students can think about, and for the contribution of the environmental sustainability in this post-COVID scenario. And thank you very much for your patience, and please wait for the next session. Thank you.
அப்படியா சரி ரைட் ஓகே
11 to 11:30 இவங்க இருக்கு அப்புறம்
Hi everybody, I am Dr. Srinidhi Vihashni, Associate Professor in Department of Environmental Science and Management, and I am happy to be here with you in this webinar. I am going to talk about opportunities in waste management for making Indian cities sustainable and healthy. So let us go to the session. And before we get into the session, I would like to tell you the concept of sustainable development and what is sustainable development. The sustainable development, you see, if we take any developmental activities, we need resources, and when we consume the resources, definitely there will be impact on the environment, and if we give more focus on environment, then there will be less development. And if we focus more on developmental activities, then the impact on environment is unavoidable. So we have to maintain the balance between the development as well as the environmental conservation. So there, this application of sustainable development plays major role. Then what exactly the concept sustainable development means? It means the need of the present generation should not affect the need of the future generation. So whatever activity we are doing, we will be consuming the resources. By consumption of these resources, the ability of the future generation for their own developmental activity should not get affected. So that is the meaning of sustainable development. And in UN General Assembly, they have framed totally 17 sustainable development goals. So here in this slide, you can have a look. And since I have taken the sustainable waste management, the goal number 3 and goal number 11 and goal number 6 are going to be covered in my topic. So what I mean to say here is, by managing the waste, we can help achieving the goal number 3 and goal number 11 and goal number 6. And the goal number 3 talks about good health and well-being, and goal number 11 talks about sustainable cities and communities. If you just carefully look at these goals, you can understand one thing, that is, for good health and well-being as well as sustainable cities and communities, we need one thing, that is sustainable waste management. You just imagine, without managing the waste, the city cannot be sustainable in its function. Similarly, without managing the waste, we cannot achieve good health and well-being. So therefore, waste management is very, very important. Now let us look at the issues, various issues the cities in India are facing. So I have given the important issues along here, starting from overcrowding, pollution, unsafe drinking water, city waste, new emerging contaminants, gender-bending chemicals, obesogens, that is the chemical that causes obesity, and antibiotic-resistant microbes, outbreak of new diseases, fatal accidents, natural hazards, and floating population, slums, and high crime rate. These are the major issues faced by Indian cities. So therefore, we have to convert our Indian cities into more sustainable cities. So for that, we have to understand how one can make the city sustainable and how the sustainable city would look like. If you see the lifestyle of sustainable city, the city will be functioning in eco-friendly manner. Means the impact caused by the human activity will be very less. So that is the meaning of eco-friendly activities. And similarly, whatever the resources the city need will be available within the city. So there will be self-reliance in the resource availability, and production and consumption process will exert only very little pressure on the environment. So these three important components decides whether the city is sustainable or not. Okay, what would be the outcome of sustainable city? The outcome of sustainable city, the people will be very healthy, healthy. This is the biggest advantage of sustainable city. And the developmental process will be taking place in a very eco-friendly way. So therefore, it will lead to holistic development. Now we'll see the nature of sustainable cities. Means what are the features a sustainable city has. The first and foremost thing is clean environment. So we'll be getting the clean air to breathe and safe drinking water for all, and fertile land and waste-free environment, and people will get access to clean energy source and balanced and safe food and drinking water, sound waste management, and good ecosystem with good biodiversity, with sufficient resources to sustain life, and people will be financially independent and healthy and peaceful city life. So these are the various advantages, and these are the very features of sustainable city. And ultimately it will lead to prosperous productive society. So that is the major advantage. Now we'll see how one can make the city sustainable. What are the barriers or obstacles in front of us for making sustainable city? The first and foremost challenge what the Indian country, that is India, country like India is facing is population and poverty. And the second important barrier is eco-friendly and economic activities. Means the present economic activities are man-centered activities. So slowly we have to convert the economic activity in eco-friendly way. And third challenge is provision of safe drinking water for all the people, and then providing the greenhouses for all so that the impact will be less on the environment, and providing the clean energy sources to everyone, and sound waste management system. This is very important about what I am going to discuss. Similarly, good transportation system is another challenge. Powerful communication system, pollution-free environment, and friendly energy sources are the major challenge. So we need to get the eco-friendly energy resources to make the city clean. And another important challenge is corruption-free governance. So I have listed here totally around 10 points, but today in this webinar I am going to talk about the sound waste management system, which is very crucial for sustainable city. So in this slide we are going to discuss on various issues the present Indian cities are facing with respect to waste management. The foremost important point regarding the issue faced by Indian cities are overpopulation and consumerism. And because of these two factors, our Indian cities are generating huge amount of solid waste which is unmanageable by the urban local bodies. And another important thing is unscientific disposal, which is very common in every nook and corner of the cities. And the reason behind this is the urban local bodies are not able to reach the every corner of the city because our cities are not planned. And if you take the peri-urban area, it is very difficult to reach these congested places to collect the waste material from the residential area. So therefore, we are not able to cover the entire area for waste collection. And another thing is, most of the time, the corporations are collecting the waste material and they are dumping the waste material in one corner of the street, and the laborers who are engaged by the urban local body, they just set fire, that is they incinerate in the open environment. So this creates lots of problems. And the areas where the vehicles are not able to collect the waste material, the people themselves, they put the waste, they dump the waste in the street. So this is one of the major issues because this open dumping invites lots of rodents and the vector-borne diseases. So through this carrier for spreading the vector-borne diseases. So therefore, it is also one of the important issues. And as I mentioned earlier, incineration is another important issue. See, we are not segregating, most of us are not segregating our waste. So, along with biodegradable waste, we put the non-biodegradable waste like polythene materials and other inert materials. So, while burning, it releases lots of dioxin, furans, carbon monoxide, nitrous oxide, particulate matter. So, because of this, the towns are surrounded by the smog. So, which is very, very deleterious to human health, and because of this, people are suffered due to upper respiratory ailments. Now, we'll see what are the issues the Indian cities are facing with respect to waste management. So, already we have seen 4 important issues. So, now we'll go into the topic very deeper. In India, if you take roughly around 1.5 lakh metric tons of waste a day is generated, and out of these 1.5 lakh metric tons, only 1.35 lakh metric tons is collected by the other local bodies. So this amount, this data is given by the statistics department. And you see the point of origin of the waste, especially in Indian residential area. The kitchen alone generates 150 to 300 grams per day, and which is rich in nitrogenous and phosphorus materials. So this is very good for making the food compost. And similarly, the dining hall generates food waste around 100 to 50 grams a day. And from puja room, depending upon the occasion, we can expect 70 to 100 grams a day. And paper waste is generated minimum of 10 to maximum 70 grams a day. And another important thing is the garden waste. From garden, each house may generate minimum of 3 kg per day. So it comes roughly around 10 to 20 kg per week. So if we see the composition of garden waste, it is mostly consists of fallen leaves. So normally the residential area, they just incinerate this waste material. And next to the fallen leaves, we have the coconut spirit from shell of the coconut and has these waste are very good material for making the coir and fiber. But what we are doing, mostly the residential area, they incinerate these waste and spewing the chemical into the soil, smokes into the environment. And if we have pet or if we have poultry unit, and from the poultry unit you can expect some poultry droppings. This is also rich in potassium, phosphorus and nitrogen. So that can be used for making the food compost. And besides this, we have the grass trimmings and trimmings of pruning waste and cutting waste, etc. So these are all the major kind of waste generated from the garden. Now we'll look at the second important thing, some issues faced by India, that is the non-segregation of waste by the residents. So most of us still we are following only 2 color code system. But if you see the nature of waste, it is not 2 types of waste. It is more than that. We will be discussing in the coming slides. And here what I want to say here is what mistake the human are making. The first thing is the human hair. It is very, very problematic waste, and it will take time to accumulate. So, but what we are doing, we are just putting the human hair into common dustbin. So, this will make the process very cumbersome. Means we are indirectly affecting the biodegradation process, and people have to segregate the waste material before it is composted. And similarly, we throw the CFL lamps, that is one of the CFL lamps, LED bulbs, chip hooks, battery cells, and outdated medicines into the common waste stream. But here the problem is, you see these bulbs and batteries are very, very toxic. They have mercury in it, and similarly, the toxic metals like lead, cadmium are present in huge amount in the battery cell. And similarly, the medicine may have antibiotics, so if it is put in the common waste stream, it may aggravate antibiotic resistant development of mistake what we are doing is we are just putting all the waste like that is the vehicle spare parts and seat cover, mirror, whatever broken glass materials, they are also dumped into the common waste stream. And fourth mistake is the disposal of sanitary napkins in the common waste bin. So these napkins and tissue, that is wet wipes and gloves and masks and tissues are loaded with microorganisms. So during this COVID-19 pandemic period, so we have to be very careful. If we dispose our masks and gloves in the common waste dustbin, it will aggravate the situation, it will worsen the situation. So we will be acting as a carrier, we will spread the microorganism from one house to another place. So we have to be very careful. So in this slide, what we have seen is what are the common mistakes the present waste management is making. That alone we have seen. We'll go to the next slide. The third important issue with respect to waste management in India is open dumping and incineration. I already told you the consequences of open dumping and incineration. So here you can see the production of smog and emission of greenhouse gases, the health hazards, especially the cancer rate is increasing in India, especially the lung cancer is more in metropolitan cities, especially Delhi, Calcutta, Maharashtra. And similarly, the disposal of toxic waste like batteries and tube lights in the common waste stream will lead to biomagnification because these materials will be having the toxic metals like lead and mercury, and this lead and mercury will get bioconcentrated by the environmental receptor and through food chain it reaches one organism to next organism in the higher trophic level. So this we have to avoid. And another important thing is if we do the open dumping, then it will lead to pollution of water bodies during monsoon period. And similarly, the waterways will be choked by the plastic waste. So therefore, what we have to understood, what we have to learn from this thing is, we should know how to segregate our waste, what are all the toxic waste, what are all the biodegradable waste, what are all the hazardous waste, we should know. Accordingly, the waste should be disposed of. So we have seen the various issues pertaining to India regarding waste disposal, and now we'll see what are the impact we will be facing or we are facing due to the improper waste disposal of what are all the health issues we are facing due to improper waste disposal. So here I have given only the major impact in the health sector. So starting from cancer and endocrine disorder, especially if you see the rate of infertility among the Indian citizens is very high. You can see lots of fertility center coming up. And similarly, the PCOD rate, polycystic ovarian disease, this is also very high among the women. And early puberty is also becoming very common among children. And upper respiratory disorders, sleep disorder due to free radical damage, and water and foodborne diseases, vector-borne diseases like dengue and cholera are very common in India. And some people get kidney problem due to toxicity and liver problem and cardiovascular diseases due to the air pollution. So these are the major health issues common in the city, Indian city due to improper waste disposal. Now, what is the solution? So we must know how best the waste can be treated so that we can keep the health hazards at minimum level. So this is the prime motive of this webinar. So now I am going to propose one model. So this model is designed by me, and I have named it as customized waste collection system. So what I observed is each country has its own culture. If we take India, India is unique in its culture, and according to the culture, the nature of waste also will vary. Therefore, one cannot practice blindly what the developed countries are practicing for their own waste management. So we need a separate, unique system of waste management so that it will suit to our need. So here in this table, you can see the first column. The first column represents the food waste. So the residential people, the people, what they can do is, they can, instead of keeping the food waste, they need to have 14 different containers, and each container is meant for different kind of waste which is generated in Indian home. So in the first container, we can segregate the food waste, garden waste, because the food and garden waste comes under the wet waste category, and these wastes are rich in nutrients, especially the nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium. Therefore, if we do the composting process, that particular resident will be able to get compost. So this is the very good advantage of practicing or segregating food waste separately. And the second container, you can collect the kitchen waste. So it is nothing but the peel of fruits and vegetables. This is also rich in nitrogen, and depending upon the need, you can go for mixing the waste one with that of the waste food, mainly the food waste. Why I am advising you to collect the waste separately? Because food waste, it is already cooked one, so it will easily spoil. Whereas fruit waste and vegetable waste, it is very watery in nature, and so we have to add some brown material so that the excess moisture will be absorbed by the brown material like soil or ash, and easily can be composted. So depending upon the need, we can mix these two waste, or we need not mix these two waste for making the composting. And the third container, the resident can collect the coconut shell. So normally what we do, we are just throwing the coconut shell, but this coconut shell is the rich source of biochar. What is biochar? Biochar is an organized material, and this is a good agent for absorbing the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Not only that, you can use the biochar in your gardens for retaining the nutrient and to release the nutrients slowly to the plant. So it has so many advantages. Why we need to talk about biochar and why it is so special? Because the biochar has so many active sites at surface level. So it acts as a receptor to carry or to fix the nutrients on its surface, and depending upon the need, these fixed nutrients are slowly available to the plants. So therefore, instead of throwing the coconut shell out, we can make use of the coconut shell for making the biochar. And another important use of coconut shell is making refuse-derived fuel. RDF means refuse-derived fuel. So these shell can be pyrolyzed or gasified using gasifier or pyrolyzer. And finally, we will get the pellets. The pellet form of these char can be used in industries as well as residential area as a fuel, because it is smoke-free. In the fourth container, you can collect napkins, wipes, and tissues, masks, disposable bags, and carry bags, etc. So this is normally, if you see the composition of the disposable carry bag, it contains a polythene material, polystyrene. So we cannot incinerate these waste in the open environment because it will release dioxin, it will release the furans and other toxic compounds in the environment. Therefore, we need a safe disposal system for disposing this kind of waste. So what I suggest is we can go for incinerating this waste. Therefore, it has to be kept separately in a separate room. Then all type of glasses can be collected in one bin and it can be sold to the recycling purpose. And in the next category, that is in the next bin, you can put the LED bulbs and CFL and other toxic waste along with other electronic waste. You can segregate or keep your LED bulbs also, because this is also contains a huge amount of toxic material. Therefore, it has to be properly disposed of through the designated authorities. They will collect the waste from you and they will extract the valuable metals out of it. And all types of batteries what we can do is, I'm suggesting you to deposit in the shop from where you can you bought those articles, because these batteries are having heavy metals like cadmium, lithium, mercury. So it should be come under the corporate social responsibility. So the shop should collect such materials from the consumer. Then use and throw plastics means I'm talking about the once-use plastics, single-use plastics. So these can be used for incineration. So we should not incinerate this waste material. Instead, these waste can be sold to the designated authorities. They incinerate this waste and they will recover the energy out of this waste material. So this single-use plastic can be used for energy generation by the municipal corporation. Then comes your garden waste. That is the garden waste which is large in size, which needs shredding. So these waste can be sold to the panchayat, and panchayat should have a shredding machine, and they can shred the waste and they can make RDF, that is refuse derived fuel, out of it. Then come your recyclable plastics. So normally what we do, these recyclable plastics are normally put in one separate bin and it is sold to the traffickers. So similarly, we can keep the recyclable plastics in one bin, and finally it can be sold to the designated authority for recycling. Then comes your paper waste. This paper waste, it is quite interesting. So each and every municipal corporation can set up the model or a small unit, prototype paper recycling unit, and all the paper waste generated by the entire city can be collected through panchayat system, and these finally this can be processed in the recycle unit, paper recycling unit, which is erected in the panchayat. So by this we can recycle the paper and we can make use of the pulp for making the stationeries, and these stationeries can be sold to the public of that city at affordable cost. Then comes your metal waste, and this metal waste can be recycled by selling this metal waste to the recyclers. And then comes your human hair. This human hair is rich in keratin. So normally what we do, we throw the human hair along with other waste. But if we segregate the human hair and if we keep separately, this can be used for wig making process as well as keratin extraction or amino acid extraction. So this will give you a good amount of income if we properly segregate and if we sell this human hair to the proper authorities. And then next comes your reusable module. So normally the computer, the outdated cell phone, and the toys, materials, mixie, grinder. So sometimes there may not be any fault in it, but we want to use some brand new one. So in such condition, what we can do is we can deposit this article in the shop which is maintained by the panchayat, and through this the needy people can approach the panchayat and they can get this article at free of cost or affordable cost. So in this slide, what this customized waste collection system, I have listed totally around 14 different types of waste. But presently, in our present existing waste management technology, we are following only 2 bins, and all the 14 different waste are put into 2 bins. So that is why we are not able to manage our waste in efficient way. We are just making the process very cumbersome, and therefore we are not able to get the result. As a result, the cities are loaded with smoke and fog. So now we'll see the supply chain management. So previously we have seen the innovative model, how we can manage our waste. So now you may think how it will function. So in this slide you can clearly understand how it is going to function. So I told you that each city will be having the local body or corporation. So the corporation has to appoint the qualified personnel. This qualified personnel should have a degree in environmental science or environmental engineering. Why? Because these people are having adequate knowledge in waste management. So after appointing these personnel, and these people will work as designated authority, and they will through the volunteers, they will approach the resident and they will gather all the waste material on scheduled basis. Why scheduled basis? Because all 14 different waste materials, all the 14 types of waste material will not be generated in same quantity. Some waste may take time. Say for example, the coconut shell may take time. Weekly interval or monthly interval we can collect the shell. And whereas the napkin waste daily is generated, food waste daily is generated, LED bulb it may take time to generate. So therefore, the electronic waste can be collected once in a year, and whereas the wet waste can be collected on daily basis, and some garden waste can be collected on monthly basis. So therefore, on scheduled basis, the designated authorities can reach the resident, they can collect the waste material. After collecting the waste material, they can bring the waste material into the waste processing unit. This waste processing unit will be set up nearby the panchayat, and this unit should be away from the city or city limit. And these trained persons, they will process the waste material, and after value addition, these processed material will be sold to the designated shops. So before that, I want to mention one more important point. Those qualified persons who are interested to work as ecopreneur, they can get trained by the panchayat or trained through the experts who are very expert in waste management. So after successful completion of the training, these trained personnel they can make use of the seed money given by the corporation or the government. They can go for startup. So they will process the waste material, and they, after value addition, the material will be sold to the government authorized shop to the public. So these materials should be sold to the same city, to the same people, so that the waste material, the resources consumed by the resident, will be recycled within the residential area, and it will be made available again and again to the people of that area. So this is a closed cycle. Otherwise, if you see the existing waste management practice, it is not so. The waste material, the resources are coming from one side, the residents are getting these resources, and it is sent out in the form of waste, and these waste are just incinerated, spoiling the environment. Whereas if you practice this method, this model, the waste will not be wasted, it will be converted into wealth in a scientific way, and by this the pollution is brought down at the maximum. So now we'll see the benefit, why this model is very good and what benefit is going to give. So if we implement this model, we will be able to manage our waste scientifically, and this would be very much helpful for resource conservation, and we can maintain the environment neat and clean, and additionally it creates employment opportunity to the educated youths, and indirectly it helps eco-ownership. What is meant by eco-ownership? Eco-ownership is nothing but the entrepreneur in the eco-friendly businesses. So these kind of jobs are required nowadays because these kind of jobs are problem-solving jobs, and instead of affecting the environment. So therefore, the government should promote such green businesses in future. And overall, if you see, by implementing this waste management model, the city will be converted to sustainable, and additionally, the waste will be converted to fertilizer, the waste will be converted to energy, and waste will be converted to wealth. So this is the ultimate aim of this innovative model. Now we'll see what are the opportunities in solving sustainable waste management for green business. So those who are interested in starting the green business, they can think of these, the people who are interested in starting the green business, that they can think more on these areas, because there are very good opportunities in waste management for starting up the green businesses. So you can start paper recycling in your area. You can make folders and pipes from the recycled materials, and you can sell these materials to the corporation and panchayat. And similarly, we can make one-side notebooks, paper bag for shopping at affordable price. And similarly, we can make bricks out of the coir which is generated in the garden, and cocoa bean, sawdust, fly ash bricks, and paper bricks and handles. They are very, very strong. In durability it is highly durable. So we can think of starting the brick making unit also in your area, and we can think of selling the second-hand article at the affordable price, such as the very good brand new shirts which you don't like to wear. You can sell these materials, and similarly the outdated electronic items, vehicles, books, bed materials, courier items, furniture. There are a lot of items are coming under this category. So the opportunities are plenty in the waste management sector. And finally, we have come to the conclusion part. I want to conclude that the health and well-being of the people lies in the nature of environment. Unless the environment is neat and clean, we cannot improve the health and well-being of the society. And to maintain the good environment, we need to manage the waste scientifically. So the nature of waste management decides whether the city environment is clean or not. Since the proposed model of waste disposal manages waste completely through eco-friendly way, it is very much warranted for building sustainable cities. So, the civilized waste management is the need of the hour, and the success of this model lies in the practice by every individual in the country. Otherwise, urban utopia only in dream. So, we have come to the final session. I have concluded my lecture, and dear viewers, thanks for listening this lecture, and again we will meet during the interaction session. Thank you all. And finally, I would like to express my thankfulness to the WEG, University, Eco-Preneurship, Innovation and Career Hub for arranging this program. I also thank the University Authority for the great help, and thank you very much.
Good morning all present here. I welcome you to this webinar on COVID, environmental sustainability, and innovative models towards environmental sustainability. I am Dr. Prashant Devi from the Department of Environmental Science and Management. I am here to talk about the R-class perception towards environment and health with respect to COVID-19. Let's see objectives of the small talk that I am going to give you. So, I just like to present a pre and post scenario of COVID-19 on environment and health. I just want to run through how COVID has changed the virus and my perspective on environment and health. And what will be the post-COVID situation, and how environment and how health perspectives will change in the post-scenario of COVID-19. So a Facebook user once said that maybe this virus has put Mother Earth into a cleaning zone, okay, where Mother Earth has allowed us to take a time for a while she cleans up the mess that we have here. So Elizabeth Capillary, she had also posted some clear pictures of the clear canals in Venice while writing this. So once this COVID-19 threat was on, and once the lockdowns were imposed on the nations, social media was filled in with pictures of air quality levels being coming down in most of the cities, how environment is clean, how animals are walking on the streets, how animals are more free to move around, and clear water seen through the canals in Venice, and all this. So the nations have actually come down to these imposed lockdowns to minimize the spread of that's COVID-19. So the impact of these shutdowns, though it has triggered a worldwide economic downfall and has created ripple effects across the industries and sectors, we could see that the environment was healing by itself. The human activities came to a halt, but nature itself has resumed its flow. According to a survey by the World Economic Forum, COVID-19 was seen as an economic crisis rather than a health risk. So, why economic crisis was because most people lost their jobs, employment activities, business activities, industrial activities came to a halt, and these concerns have been increasing since February 2020, particularly in the European countries, after we saw what happened in China, after we saw what the COVID scenario was in China. So in these countries, economic concerns appear to have increased more than the concerns that were related to the threat of the virus. So that is why we saw more cases in Italy, more cases in Spain, in European countries than the other countries. So that was where we learned a lesson. In India, we learned a lesson on how to impose these lockdowns, how to stay safe within our home environment. So COVID-19 and our sustainable development goals, let's see how they are kind of interlinked with each other. So we were on the verge of achieving our sustainable development goals. And according to Sustainable Development Goal 3, good health means strengthening the capacity of countries for early warning to reduce the risk and to manage the national and global health risk. So this COVID-19 has given us a lesson where we were not prepared for the current virus threats. Lockdown was the only manner through which we could reduce the risk of the spread of COVID-19. And we had taken lessons from the other nations, especially from China, Spain, Italy, and other European countries. And those lessons were imposed into our nation, whereby we had learned to live within certain limitations. So this coronavirus or COVID-19 has actually exposed our weaker health systems or weaker systems in managing a viral threat. UNESCO estimates that around 1.2 billion students are affected, which is a quality education is actually a sustainable development goal. And this quality education has met downfall by serious challenges in attaining quality education, has met a downfall during this COVID-19 lockdowns. Most students were not having good access to remote education. Students were not able to connect through online media through their education systems. We were actually not prepared for such a vast change in the education, granting education through media. Actually. And then the International Labour Organization has estimated about 25 million people losing their jobs, especially those in informal employment. They were suffering most from the lack of social protection. So this we have currently seen in India. COVID-19 situation has put a lot of people on the streets. Migrant laborers were found to leave their workplaces and move into their native locations. We most recently, last week, we have come across around 15 migrant laborers losing their lives by lying on the railway tracks. So migrant laborers and contract laborers have lost their jobs and they do not know what the future holds for them. So when we are talking about sustainable development goals, the achievements of sustainable development goals have faced a setback because of this virus lockdown. In many parts of the world, the pandemic and its effects and the risks are aggravated by the crisis in achieving clean water and sanitation targets, which is another SDG 6. So we have been talking about washing our hands, staying clean, and keeping ourselves safe. But this achievement has also led to water crisis, and sanitation is an important question when it comes to people who do not have access to clean water. Lots of people do not have decent jobs. There's a weak economic growth, which is again another SDGs 8. Lots of pervasive inequalities are there. Lots of people, social workers are addressing the issues of domestic violence in the wake of COVID-19. Domestic deaths have occurred. We have seen entrenched poverty, and food insecurity is another question during COVID-19. The World Bank has estimated that the crisis will push around 11 million people into poverty post-COVID situation. There's 32% increase in the probability of death among the poorest fifth of the population compared to the wealthiest fifth, mainly from these three factors, that is economic growth, weaker economic growth, absence of jobs, sanitation and clean water. Stephen et al. He has explained that the least well-off, that is the poor people, who tend to live in large intergenerational households, in a closed confined households which contains both children and elderly people. These kind of households, they hamper the efforts to protect the elderly, especially where we have to put in a social distancing measure. So such closed confined households, social distancing itself is impossible, and the elderly and the younger people, that is children, for the most vulnerable population, are themselves posed to the risk of COVID-19. Poorer populations are more susceptible to food security issues, and these populations are having the highest level of undernourishment by being more dependent on their own food production. So when we know that own food production, they have to depend on clean water, nourished soil, and better quality of soil for producing their own food. And that itself is a question mark when it comes to poor people trying to produce their own food. Then we have these refugees and internally displaced people like migrant workers who are more vulnerable to the impact of COVID-19, and they also face additional challenges of fragile and non-existent health systems and poor infrastructure. Of course, for migrant workers and displaced people, we have refugee camps, but again the system in the refugee camps kind of health infrastructure in the refugee camps in this semester. So before COVID-19, what were we? How we were handling the situations of the environment, how we were living before COVID-19. We were more insensitive towards personal hygiene and sanitation. Of course, we ourselves have been advocating sanitation and personal hygiene, but that again was not taken very seriously. We needed external environmental agents to fight for the environment, and environmental protection and concerns were mostly discussed among qualified people at higher levels. So, all these were mostly discussed in forums. Environmental protection, environmental concern, seasonal environmental changes, climate change, all these were only discussed. Dumpsters were full, trash cans were full, trash were literally strewn over the streets, industrial effluents filled our streams. Okay, so that was the situation of the environment before COVID. And then we had been carrying out sensitization programs for single-use plastics and discard of single-use plastics. There was no social distancing. Of course, social distancing inside, we didn't know what the definition of social distancing was. There was no work from home as such. We had increased road traffic. We had increased air traffic. E-commerce and online trading and binge eating was there. People were not bothered about junk food. Restaurants were open 24/7. We had door delivery systems, efficient door delivery systems where food was delivered to our homes. We were more concerned about our lifestyle. We were more concerned about improving our lifestyle and our food styles. Data network and Wi-Fi were honestly used for forwarding messages. Social media was used to forward messages. Social networking was there. Online shopping was on. We used online networks for gaming, and education was under the least concern on the online or data networks. Sanitation and cleaning was left to municipality and corporation. We expected a third party to sanitize and clean our areas. We expected a third party to come and correct our waste and manage our waste. And then we had something known as carpooling. When carpooling was advocated, we had questions on security and personal travel. Most people did not go for carpooling, which again increased the road traffic and increased obviously our carbon levels. Hospital visitations were increased, especially for elders. We had insurances for visits to hospitals or for ailments people in relation to health. Younger ones were more involved in indoor gaming and using the mobile phones more than their physical health. We had young people visiting the malls and theatres more than their physical fitnesses. Young people rather chose malls and theatres for their get-together than a natural or nature outlets. But after COVID-19, after the lockdown was imposed, after we learned to sit at home and work at home, we have started discussing how nature is healing. We have started discussing on how environment has become more clearer, more cleaner and clearer. Social media is filled with pictures of how we are able to see the parliament at a distance in Delhi, how clean air is being witnessed in Delhi, how people are able to breathe in cities, but in spite of that we have to wear our masks. How we are able to see the Himalayas from about 180 kilometers distance. All of this we can see that the environment itself is healing itself. We have now learned how to handle our personal hygiene, and sanitation is at its best. We have been advocating social distancing and work from home. We have known that we can handle a lot of work situations from home. We have come into a situation where we have started into relationship building with our families and neighbors. Waste is collected at our doorstep and more frequently, which is more surprising. Surprisingly, our waste collectors are coming in every other day pre-COVID situation was like they used to come and collect waste only once in a week. We have learned to reduce the waste that are going into the dumpsters, and mostly there is zero waste dumping on the streets and on the waste dumpsters in the streets. Though we had panic buying when every time a lockdown was imposed, there was panic buying, but the utilization of the resources were justifiable. When it came to vegetables and fresh resources, we depended on locally available resources. And locally available resources were used at most levels. Limiting car traffic, people started recognizing carpooling activities for going out. Absolute zero air traffic, where only cargo flights were allowed to move. Okay. We have started sharing our resources with our neighbor, and for the less people who were in need of resources, we have understood what neighbor recognition is. We have learned to start sharing our resources with our neighborhood community. We have understood the importance of local securities, the work done by janitors and health professionals. We have known to treat small ailments at home, and we are going to keep ourselves more healthier in this COVID-19 lockdown situations. More importance is given to physical fitness, and there is zero junk food in our houses. Single-use plastics have been reduced because we have started fearing that the single-use plastics may harbor viruses. So even the vegetable vendors or the vegetables that are being sold by the corporation and the municipality come with sustainable bags, recyclable bags that can be used again and again. The recycling plants have stopped working thanks to the amount of waste that is landing up in the trash cans. And we have learned to keep our surroundings clean, our environment more clean, because the anthem that we have right now in the COVID lockdown situations is "Keep Corona at a Distance." Through this anthem, we are learning to keep our surroundings even more cleaner. Above all, we are more concerned about the health status of our jurisdiction in terms of COVID. We want to know who is infected and what is their health improving, and we want to know how many people are on the verge of infection, what are the surrounding situations in terms of infected people and all that. So we are more concerned about our neighborhood so that we can protect ourselves and our neighborhood. So the lesson that we have learned from this COVID-19 situation is we are living within our boundaries, we are limiting ourselves, and we are connecting ourselves to others through remote methods, online methods. This lockdown itself has led to the emission reduction in China by 25% since January. So we all know that social media is telling us what is the situation of the air quality and what is the situation of the environment in terms of air quality and coal use. So 40% of coal use has reduced in China's largest power plants. So we know that carbon emissions have been reduced. The air quality index in India has also improved. The concentration of particulate matter 2.5 in New Delhi has fallen from 91 micrograms per cubic meter to 26 in just 1 week of the lockdown. Industrial activities have reduced, but not necessary to that of the traffic volumes. We of course need the power plants to run to produce electricity. Water treatment plants have to continue to treat water. Nitrogen oxide levels have reduced by 35 to 40% during this lockdown period. Wastewater treatment plants have increased their sanitization measures so that we want to see that there are no viruses that are washed out into our wastewater treatment systems. Medical waste are piling up, of course, and so are our sterilization activities, so that we can treat these medical waste. people who are celebrating this current environmental situation, environmental improvement situation during COVID-19 crisis, actually we are more short-sighted. He says we are not looking beyond COVID-19 crisis or what post-COVID-19 crisis are going to be. Pollution status may temporarily decline, but this is not a sustainable way of cleaning up our environment. Virus itself is going to bring environmental problems, which is going to be hard for us to tackle and deal with in the future times. So, what we are expecting in the post-COVID-19 situation is going to be a very hard environmental task for us to deal with. So, this is giving us more opportunities, a more innovative way to think about how environment is going to be at the post-19 situation and what are the methods that we can use to reduce the environmental problems in the post-19 situation. In the long term, COVID-19 pandemic holds lessons and opportunities for environmental actions. We have to plan right now for how we are going to handle the COVID-19 post situations and how we are going to develop innovative methods or innovative models for handling the post-19 situations. Right now, we are in a new baseline of how we are going to work online, how we are telecommunicating with each other, how we are educating lots of people through online methods, how we are shopping and online. So we can use these online methods to discuss plans for our environmental action in post-COVID-19 situations. Through this, the extent of our government, institutions and social network may succeed in taking on issues like climate change, and we may provide a transition into sustainable energy sources. So our new action plan may help paving a way to what our government, institutions and social networks are going to face in the future. However, the present hard economic times could undermine the enthusiasm that we have for environmental protection, because we are now under a race with economy, and with the future economic trends, we have to also run on par with the environmental protection, because we are going to prioritize health, safety and recovery methods. At the same time, our environmental protection is also going to stand in line with this health, in line with economy. For example, if our consumers turn their backs on solar and electrical vehicles so that we want to maintain the current status of the environment, the pandemic could stem the progress that we are making towards decarbonization. So, I'll come to this later as to how this post-19 situation is going to put a question mark on our environmental protection. So why I have chosen an hourglass concept to deliver this message is because till now, considering our system in which we were living, if we have been living in the upper part of the hourglass, if we have been using the upper part of the hourglass, we have been with unlimited resources, unlimited utilization of the resources, and unlimited discharges of our utilizations or waste disposals have been there, considering that as the upper part of the hourglass. So that is how we have been living in our pre-COVID-19 situations. Currently, we are living within limits and defined boundaries as to how we are forced into the neck of the hourglass. So we know that we can't extend ourselves beyond certain limits, we can't utilize our resources beyond certain limits, and that is how we are being living, which is like living in the neck of the hourglass. But what happens after the lockdown is escape? Once the lockdown is relaxed and once we are set free, it will be like a free flow into the lower half of the hourglass. So post-COVID-19 situation will be like how we will be allowed to flow into the hourglass in a free manner with too many outflows from too many inputs. So what do I mean by these too many outflows and too many inputs? reduce. There will be too many economic activities because our limited economic activities in the post-COVID-19 situation will lead to people increasing the economic activities, industries working overtime, and our commercial activities working overtime to meet up to the economy that has been lost. Therefore, environmental concerns will become more and more less. Carbon emissions may hike up, effluent treatment plants and wastewater treatment plants may not be sufficient enough to treat the discharges that are being led into the streams. I mean into the effluent working and water treatment streams. So this will be leading into more developmental activities. Concerns about employment and business activities have already rapidly started to increase. So in post-19 situations, these employment and business activities will start booming after the lockdown has been relaxed. Therefore, a surge in the industrial activity and surge in environmental activity can be witnessed. The monumental crisis itself has caused, the monumental crisis by COVID-19 itself has, it will be tackled by continuous economic production alone. In most countries, economic concerns have already appear to have risen more steeply than concerns relating to the threats that the virus has caused. Therefore, virus hotspots will start disappearing, and we will be more disconcerted compared to the economic hotspots. Right now, virus hotspots are the hotspots that are related to people who are COVID positive and the related neighborhood and the proximity of the related neighborhood in relation to COVID hotspots. So these virus hotspots will start reducing, and we will be talking about. In the wake of COVID-19, what happens to other seasonal and regional diseases? So there are seasonal and regional diseases are existent as usual, but what happens is people in fear of visiting hospitals have learned to suppress the disorders or suppress the symptoms of the disorders. The current summer and post-monsoon seasons have led to threats, human health threats like sunstrokes, vector-borne diseases will be on the rise as usual like malaria, chikungunya and dengue. Children will be infected by seasonal illnesses like flu and fever. Though children are put into lockdown and are living within their household premises, certain illnesses like flu and fever in post-lockdown situations will tend to increase. So this increase, especially flu and fever, will link them to COVID-19, creating yet another pandemic. The present situation led by COVID-19 has itself put a setback to other health ailments. So the visitations by people for other ailments to hospitals has reduced due to the threat of being infected by COVID virus from hospital premises. The process of investments in deployment of clean energy projects will be impacted in COVID-19 situations. The pandemic has resulted in the death of thousands of people, has increased unemployment, and has led permanent changes in the lives of many people, along with the slowdown in the economy. So this itself will make people seek investment plans and increase the economic activities. The government must right now decide a post-pandemic plan or impose a post-pandemic law, and we have to decide whether the post-pandemic plan is going to be economic centric or environmental centric. If the government does not propose an environmental centric stimulus plan, or if the nation fails to recognize an environmental centric plan, environmental protection itself will take a setback. So what this COVID-19 has done to environmental healing will start facing a reduction in the post-COVID-19 situation. Therefore, we have to seek a framework so that the framework should be in a manner that revives the economy without causing any negative externalities to the environment. As we know, this pandemic has exposed our weaker systems. This pandemic has showed how weak we are in terms of economy, in terms of environment, and in terms of the health systems. Now the world is working towards containing the spread of virus, addressing its negative impacts, and reducing the risk of the COVID-19 virus in future. Therefore, our government in this situation, we must foresee what is the post-19 situation, post-COVID-19 situation, and we should start resetting our priorities. We should start reallocating our resources so that we can deal with the post-pandemic situations. Because once the lockdown has been relaxed, once the COVID-19 is taking a downturn in the curve, once COVID-19 has started reducing its infection, that is when we will be realizing how prioritization is very important, how resource allocation is very important, especially in terms of environment. So with this, I thank you for patiently listening to me, listening to this lecture on what the concept that I was trying to deliver. I hope it has reached each and every one, and I hope my session was very useful to all those who have patiently been listening. Thank you, Manu.
Questions are நீங்களே டிஸ்கஸ் பண்ற வேண்டியது. Thank you, professors, for the excellent presentation. Now we'll have a small discussion. We have about 10 to 15 minutes more. So I request the resource persons to have a discussion, and maybe if some of the participants are sending some questions through whatever channel, whether it is through this Teams platform or through WhatsApp or. Thank you, professors, for the excellent presentation. Now we'll have a small discussion. We have about 10 to 15 minutes more. So I request the resource persons to have a discussion, and maybe if some of the participants are sending some questions through whatever channel, whether it is through this Teams platform or through WhatsApp or.